Hello friends, I'm Abby, and today I'm going to be giving you part one of my two-part series of videos where I talk about the series that I really want to read sometime in the near future. I think I've talked about it in the past on my channel, but after graduating high school, I went straight into college and then I went straight into a master's program, and my degree was in psychology. And then my master's degree was in school counseling. Both of those degrees require a ton of reading, like research papers and like articles and things like that. I also read a lot of books for class, and I had a theater major, so I read a lot of plays for those, but I didn't read a whole lot for fun, and I missed out on essentially 6 years of great book series that I just like didn't participate in because I wasn't reading anything for fun. I was just reading for school. But now I'm back, baby. I'm ready to read, and I missed out on a lot of series. So today I'm going to talk about all the young adult series that I haven't read yet and I really want to get to. I would say most of these, if not all of the ones I'm going to talk about, are fantasy series. I made this really cool spread in my bullet journal where it talks about the series that I want to read, and I can track my progress in this bullet journal. So I might be referencing that as I talk to you. This is going to be a real casual sit down. Don't expect a whole lot. I'm just going to tell you what the books are, why I'm excited about them, what the books are about. So the first book series that I want to talk about is currently just a single book. The second book hasn't been published yet, but it is A Song of Wreaths and Ruin by Roseanne A. Brown. This book is the first in an African-inspired fantasy duology, so I believe there will only be 2. It focuses on a boy named Malik whose sister has been stolen by a vengeful spirit, and that spirit says you can get your sister back if you kill this woman named Karina, who is the crown princess of the land that they live in. And so Malik sets out and tries to accomplish his goal of killing the crown princess. But of course, there's like a forbidden romance aspect. There's a magical element in this where the characters are utilizing ancient magic in order to accomplish their goals. And I love when like ancient magic systems are kind of resurrected into a normal everyday life, and obviously there's a vengeful spirit involved, so the fantasy is like clearly there from the beginning. I just think this sounds amazing. I think this cover is sickening. I'm not too late to the party on this one because this book just came out in June of 2020. The first book did, and then the second book hasn't come out yet. So I still have plenty of time to stay up to date on this young adult series. The next young adult series that I really want to get to very soon is The Diviners by Libba Bray. I read A Great and Terrible Beauty by Libba Bray when I was in middle school, and I was obsessed with her writing. And so I'm really excited to get into this series. This is about a girl named Evie, I believe. Evie O'Neill, who is sent to live with her Uncle Will in New York in the 1920s. And she has a secret. Her secret is that she has a supernatural power, and her Uncle Will is obsessed with the occult. A woman in their neighborhood gets murdered, and Evie thinks that she can use her supernatural powers to solve the crime and catch a serial killer. This is going to be the perfect fantasy novel for fall, and I'm just so excited to get into it and to read this kind of spooky story about young teenagers who have powers. It just sounds so amazing. This book also seems like it's going to have kind of a found family aspect because it mentions in the synopsis that there are a couple other stories you're following throughout this book, and this book is part of a 4-book series. Those other characters, you're following their stories, but it mentions that something evil has awakened, and so I'm eager to get into their stories as well, since it's not just about Evie, it's about multiple characters. I think it's going to have that found family aspect that I really love. The next young adult series is Arc of a Scythe series. It's a trilogy, I believe, about a world where there's no hunger, no disease, no death, no natural death anyway, and overpopulation has become a problem, and so these creatures or these people become scythes, and they randomly choose people to die every year. And this first book is about a character named, two characters named Citra and Rowan, and they're both chosen to apprentice a scythe. Neither of them really want to do this. They both are kind of weirded out about taking somebody's life, and this book follows their learning how to be a scythe and following through that process as they advance through the ranks of apprenticeship. This book has gotten so many amazing reviews. It sounds fantastic, and it sounds like it kind of falls in the same like dystopian realm that I loved in the Hunger Games. Not that I think it's going to be like the Hunger Games, but I'm kind of hoping for that dystopian vibe that I got from that book. I love young adult dystopian novels, and especially when they're trilogies or series, because I love to live in that dystopian world that they're living in a world with no hunger, disease, no war, no misery. It just sounds perfect. Yeah, I'm really excited for this one. The next one is one that I've already started, and that is the Six of Crows duology. I've already read the Six of Crows, as you know if you've seen my past videos. I gave it 5 stars. It was almost my favorite book of the month that I read. It was fantastic. It was filled with so many cinnamon bun characters and warm, gooey feelings that I haven't felt in a book, in a fantasy book anyway, in a long time. And it really reminded me why I love reading YA fantasy. I do love adult fantasy, but YA fantasy just does something really special. And I loved the Six of Crows. This series, or this duology, is set in the Grishaverse, which is another universe created by the author Leigh Bardugo, and it has its own magic system going on. So there's like a full magic system that's already pre-established before these books. However, I did not read those books first, and I started with Six of Crows. So if you are thinking, oh, well, I have to wait until I read all these books before diving into Six of Crows, I don't agree. I didn't read the books beforehand, and although the first few chapters, I was like, wait, what are these names? I Googled them, and everything made sense. So if you are okay with just Googling the magical system and not having it like fully explained to you in the book, I think you'll be totally fine to start with Six of Crows. This series is about a group of 6 teenagers who are all kind of outcasts in society. They don't really fit in any place, and they all have very special skills and unique skills that are kind of seen as shady. And so this man hires them, this group of kids, to go as a team and break this man out of prison. The man who is in prison is this man who created a drug that can essentially make the magical powers of anybody that has this magic inside of them superhuman and like extra crazy, and people are wanting to use that drug to create an army. And so the kids are sent to go kidnap this man, break him out of prison, and stop the people who currently have him from creating an army with his drug. It was just such a fantastic book, and I can't wait to finish the duology with Crooked Kingdom, hopefully sometime soon. But I wanted to put it in here even though I've already read the first one, because it's so good and I haven't finished it, and this is going to be my accountability that I do want to finish it, and I will finish it soon. The next series is The Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater. I got this recommendation from Books and Lala's channel because she really loved it, and she said that it reminded her of another like found family trope. So I'm very eager to get into this because I loved that trope in Six of Crows. Again, not that I think that they're going to be the same, but I think that found family is something I just really enjoy in books. So this series, or at least the first book, is about a girl named Blue who has a clairvoyant mother who can see the dead and watches them as they pass over every year. And Blue has never been able to see these ghosts except for this year when she sees a boy. This boy's name is Gansey, and he is a rich student at a private school in their town. And the boys who go to this private school are known as the Raven Boys, and they usually mean trouble. But Blue is really drawn to Gansey, and they kind of start to develop this relationship. But Blue remembers that she has this prophecy hanging over her head that she is destined to kill her one true love. So she's kind of resistant to having any feelings for anybody. And obviously this is a fantasy story, so there's some like magical stuff going on. Ghosts are involved. It just sounds so beautiful. And the tagline for this is that it's a series where the inevitability of death and the nature of love lead us to a place where we've never been before. Honestly, love and death are such beautiful things to be written about ever, and so this series that is like including both of them and focusing on both of these, I'm ready to read it. I'm ready. And it's another found family where she joins this group of boys. It just sounds so sweet. Next up is not a fantasy series, but it is a sci-fi series, and it's called The Illuminati Files by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This series sounds so fascinating. So it is a mixed media series, so it includes transcripts, instant messages, reports that are made on this ship that they're on. I've seen like people flip through the book and there's like completely black pages. It just looks like it will be gorgeous to read, and I've heard that the audiobook is amazing. So I'm hoping to get both at the same time so that I can listen to the audiobook and read it as well, so I can get all aspects of this series. This is a series about Katie and Ezra, who live in the year 2575, so it's set in the future, and their planet is invaded. They have to escape this planet, but the morning before their planet is invaded, they broke up. So they're kind of dealing with this breakup that they just went through and the feelings that they have for each other while escaping this invasion of their planet. On top of that, there's a plague that breaks out, so it makes it extra intense. The stakes are so high, and it's kind of up to Katie and Ezra to work together to find the truth behind what is really going on in their world. This sci-fi romance is something that I think I haven't explored a whole lot. I've read science fiction and I've read romance, but the science fiction romance books have really been piquing my interest lately. Ever since I read The Space Between Worlds, which I will talk about in my September wrap-up. I just think that it's so fascinating to read about a world that's set in the future, or a dystopian world, or a science fiction world where you're learning all of this new technology and all of that while there's a romance going on top of it, and adding that extra layer of intensity and stakes. Like, the stakes are just so high when there's romance involved, because especially in young adult books, the romance can be like off the charts. Like, they don't have the logical thinking of adults, so they will like live and breathe and die for this romance. And honestly, same. Next up, the Wayward Children series. These are a collection of books that are kind of the size of a novella. Like, the first book is only 175 pages, so they're pretty short. And each of the books in this series take place in a different character's world. Like, it's the same world, but each book is about a different character, essentially. So it's not one that you would have to necessarily read in order, although I feel like it's probably best if you do, because you'll know the characters that are present in the books. So this series focuses on Eleanor West's Home for Wayward Children. It is a home for magical children who have gone to another world or traveled somewhere magically, and then they come back to the real world and they're changed. They're different. They're not ever going to be the same again, and they can't explain their experience to people who are not magic or to the average everyday person, and so they need a place to go. So this is essentially an orphanage or a home for these magical kids who have taken their magical adventure and are now back and need a place to settle. That premise absolutely hurts my heart, and it's not something that I've seen in any other fantasy series. This idea of a home for kids who basically feel like they've used their magic up and they're like dealing, it sounds almost like they're dealing with like PTSD. I don't know, it just sounds really beautiful, and it is marked as LGBT on Goodreads, so it sounds like there might be a LGBTQIA+ romance in there, which of course we stan. It's also labeled as mystery, so who knows what happens there. Next, one of the most prolific fantasy writers, Brandon Sanderson, wrote a young adult series called Skyward. I think there are 2 books that are out so far for this. There is Skyward and Starsight, and this sounds like the science fiction, fantasy, Star Wars young adult novel that I need. It is set in a world where essentially the whole human race has been destroyed and crushed. There's very few people left, and they're trapped on a planet that is constantly being attacked by alien starfighters. And Spensa, who is a teenage girl on this planet, dreams of being a pilot. She finds this old abandoned ship and decides her dream can come true. She can be a pilot. She just has to fix the ship and learn to fly. But things kind of change a little bit for her when she realizes that the ship might have a soul. It just sounds perfect. And I think there's a new, like, a new wave of books coming out that are set in space. Something has always fascinated me about outer space and other galaxies, exploring other possibilities in our universe, because it's so huge and unknowable that it boggles the mind. So books that are set in that space, in that arena, are always appealing to me because we don't know what's out there, and these books give us an idea of what could be, on top of a fantasy element where you're like, this isn't real, but who knows? Because who knows what is even real? Next up is Caraval by Stephanie Garber. This is a series where the first book is about this big festival called Caraval. And Scarlet has always dreamed of going, but when she finds out that her father has arranged a marriage for her, she thinks her dreams will never come true, because in order to go to Caraval, you have to get an invitation, and she's never gotten one. She finally gets one, and she and her sister Tella go to Caraval. They are ready to go see this festival and partake in the games, or at least watch the games. And as soon as they get there, Tella, I think that's her name. Is it Tella? Yes. Tella is kidnapped. Scarlet finds out that the entire games this year are centered around Tella and her kidnapping. So, although she's always heard that it's just a game and it's all for performance, she's starting to believe that maybe it's not, and maybe there's something fishy going on. Another weird thing in books that I love is circus and carnivals and things like that. So this sounds right up my alley. This game centered fiction where we see characters all performing for the same goal, but maybe all of them have different motives for achieving it. It says that this is a tale of love, a tale of an unbreakable bond between two sisters, a legendary competition, and a mesmerizing romance. All of those things are fantastic things in books for me personally. Can't wait to get to this. It looks amazing. It is a trilogy, so I think that if I can get to this soon, hopefully I would be able to get through the whole trilogy pretty quickly, because I'm dying to know what happens in this book. Also, look at this cover. Are you kidding? Next is the Chain of Gold series, or the Last Hours series by Cassandra Clare. This does take place in the same Shadowhunter universe that all of her other books are set in, or at least most of them. I never really got into them. I started the first book. I read the first book in her series ever. And then I read the second one, and I just wasn't hooked like everyone else seemed to be. I don't know if I just wasn't digging it. I don't know if I just didn't connect with the characters. But Cassandra Clare writes series that are set in the same world, but you don't necessarily have to have read all the other books beforehand. It might be recommended. Am I going to do it? No. But Chain of Gold, first of all, this cover sold me. And the cover for the second book was just released. Sold. This is about Cordelia Carstairs, I think is her name. She's a shadow hunter, so shadow hunters hunt demons. And her father's accused of a crime, so she and her brother go to London in hopes of clearing his name and stopping their family from having their names be ruined. And Cordelia's mom wants her to get married, but she's like, nah, I want to fight demons and be a hero. So she pursues that with some childhood friends. Of course, there's a romance in there. We love a good young adult fantasy romance. I will always stand a young adult fantasy romance, and I'm going to read off of the screen in front of me what it says is involved in this world, because it sounds fantastic. So it says, a world of glittering ballrooms, secret assignations, and supernatural salons where vampires and warlocks mingle with mermaids and magicians. That's all of it, baby. That's all you need. Those are all the mythical creatures you need. I was a little iffy on whether I was going to read this because I didn't love her first series when I was a teenager, but I've never given it a chance since the first book. And I find a lot of times with authors that if I come back to a later series that they wrote, or if I give them time, I tend to connect more to their writing as they grow as authors. So hopefully the same happens with this, and I really connect with it because it sounds like it has all of the elements of a fantasy young adult book that I could want. Next is the Legacy of Orisha series, or The Children of Blood and Bone, which is the first book, and this is a young adult fantasy. It sounds like this is set in a world where magic was prevalent, and then all of a sudden one day the magic was stolen or it disappeared, and under the rule of this king, anybody who pursued magic was thrown in jail. And this left the main character of this book, Zaylee, with no mom, no family, and all of her people who use this magic are kind of lost and don't know what to do. So Zaylee is ready to take down the monarchy and bring magic back into their world, but she's kind of figuring out how to use her powers, and she's struggling with taking control of those powers and making sure she's not a danger to herself and others. This just sounds fabulous. This book sounds like it's going to be so interesting. It's not like other things that I have read in the young adult fantasy world. And even though this is the first book in the series, it was immediately picked up by Fox to be turned into a movie. And it was being produced by the people who produced Twilight and The Maze Runner. Although I didn't love the Twilight movies, I still think that those big names attached to it mean that it's going to be something meaningful and special. It's rated so highly, and Olivia Rizzolatti and Reagan from Peruse Project both gave it 5 stars, and I trust both of their judgments. So I want to read it because I think the sequel just came out, so I gotta get to it soon so that I can read the sequel. Next is The Nevernight Chronicles by J. Kristoff. Again, I don't know a whole lot about this. It sounds like a magical university or a university for assassins that this fledgling killer goes to. She goes to it because somebody destroyed her family and she wants to kind of defeat those powers and become this assassin so that she can seek revenge for her family. There are contests in this book to kind of compete to see who will be the best assassin, the best killer, but there's a killer loose in the halls of their assassin school. And so they're all trying to find this murderer in their assassin school. That's a lot. So yeah, it sounds like a revenge plot story with magic and murder, hunting a killer, kind of a mystery, finding clues. Sounds great to me. That's all I wanted. I'm reading this first book actually in a few days, as I got it from the library, so I'm going to start it in a couple of days. I'm so excited because I believe this is a completed trilogy. So all of the books are out already, and if I so choose, I can fly through them and finish them up. All right, friends, that is going to be all for me today. I had a great time talking to you about the books I'm excited to read. Hopefully it gave my husband a little break from having to hear me talk about the books all the time, constantly. But yeah, I am really eager to get into all of these books, and although I probably won't get to all of them immediately, I think having this video out there is going to inspire me to pick those books up so that I can talk to you about them now that you know that they're on my radar. As always, thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, share this video with anyone you think would like it, and comment down below if there are any books on this list that you've already read and think I should bump up to the top, or any books that you're excited to get into as well. I want to hear what you're looking forward to reading. Thanks again, and I will see you all next time. Bye, friends.